I late?
No, no. 5:04, call this meeting to order. The Oregon City Library Board. In attendance is Jan Wallander, Fred Haynes, Maureen Cole, Linda Ackerson, Eileen Sheridan, Don Wright, Dan Millard, Laura Ingram, and Dee Hildebrand.
So before we get started, I would like to introduce somebody to you. This is Aaron Novinger, right?
Aaron.
Great. I did pay attention. Aaron is our intern.
Cool.
And he is a former teacher and a current instructor, right?
Yes.
And he is pursuing his master's in library science with Emporia State University, which is a
Good thing.
distance program that does weekends here in Portland. And I just must have had a moment of weakness or something, and I just said, why not? So he's our guinea pig for kind of internships, and his interest is in management and technology. So I said, really? You're interested in management? Well, then you had better attend a meeting, because that's mostly what we do. So he's here to watch the proceedings and just kind of see what we do at this kind of juncture with our advisory committee.
Good,
So-
welcome.
Welcome. Yeah. And he also lives in Oregon City, which is super great, because then we get that mix in too.
And he knows how to shelve books?
I'm sure he does. That's,
Just asking.
we don't have him doing that at the moment, I don't think, but yeah.
The job always felt
It's always a good skill to have, so.
Okay.
I didn't do that.
Interrogation.
Yeah.
I would keep it
That's
on.
pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different button up here. You want the shades down? It seems everything seems,
Looks fine.
oh, his DA's not working?
No. Which one is
Wait
it?
till he's up
Thank
there.
you. Okay. Oh, thanks.
Thanks, Renee.
Okay. DA, do you want to look over her shoulder for me
Sure.
while you're up?
I've got most of the stuff printed out anyway,
Yeah,
so
I'm
I'm
sure you
good.
do. Okay, the item 2A, the minutes of the last meeting. Everyone's had a chance to have them at home or here. Dan, sorry there's a little shock in there, but
That's what I get for not being here.
yeah, true. So,
I move to approve the
okay.
minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes. There's a second.
Second.
Okay, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. Public comments.
No
It's
public.
kind of vacant tonight.
Kind of vacant tonight.
Yep, okay.
Linda asked me to update on the foundation, because she
Oh,
wasn't
great.
able to make
You
it.
can do that under
Make
communications.
communications.
Got it.
Excellent.
Okay.
Good.
Good. Okay. Building project, okay.
Great. So DA, you can jump right in on this building project update section.
I forgot to ask you ahead of time, but, we've got a budget.
We do have a budget now.
And,
It just got approved.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
The total overall budget is $10,500,000. So that's slightly more than than our bonds, but in any case, the first round of pricing the project based on the schematic drawings that you've seen came in just fine. They were about 5% higher than we were targeting, but we also had a few adjustments to make elsewhere in the budget, so that the contractor now has a construction budget of about $6,300,000. So that's where we are, and at this point, everything is very schematic. So the pricing that we have is a good taste of what's to come. But the next round will be the design development documents that allow the contractor to really develop their pricing, and that's I think that's about a little less than 2 months out.
We go into
around the end of
the-
March.
We go in front of the City Commission on March 18th to go into the next phase of things as far as documentation. Yeah.
So we walked away from the building committee meeting yesterday very pleased with the way the budget is set up. Then there's some alternates that are also going to be in the program to look at as we finally get to some real pricing down the road. And so if there's any savings that can go towards alternates that can be engaged, so we've got kind of a categorization of, or a prioritization of these alternates that we've talked about. We kicked one out and put another in, and so that's kind of part of a good planning process for what happens if we get a little more money, and then we have something we can choose from. So our goal is to spend the money on the library and get the best library for the buck. So these alternates are going to be a helpful part of that process. Right now, we think we may look a little better on scheduling than we thought, because the city's land use review process is moving along without any great glitches, and that's an important thing. Yeah, because that is individually the single longest review process that we've got, and if there's an appeal or something like that, it can really delay the project. So we're feeling pretty good about how that's moving along. The city plan review people for building permit purposes are they've reached out to us and said we'll do anything we can to even go to the architect's office and look at drawings. So they're just going to bend over backwards to make sure the project gets going.
It's really good.
That's neat.
There's still some issues. There's still other, I suppose, neighborhood group meetings that still have to be attended, and the traffic impact studies.
Yeah,
got little things.
We
to
did
worry
at least
about.
we were supposed to go to a second meeting with the Traffic Advisory Committee next Tuesday, and the staff that oversees that group said, we can do anything we need to do by email on that. So we got out of that meeting, which is great, because anytime you bring a consultant into town to attend a meeting with you, it costs money, and if it's not necessary, then so it was presented to them last month. They just needed more time to kind of peruse it and really process it. And as far as staff knows, only one of them even has any questions, so I think we're good with that.
Great.
Yeah,
Good.
so I was really pleased to get that off of our
Do they
calendars.
have a
That just
deadline
happened
for a
today.
decision?
They don't have to make a decision. The traffic people don't.
Yeah.
It's just we want all the appropriate advisory groups to be apprised of what we're doing.
Well, I think the way to summarize it is that we've got a basic building plan that you've seen, the schematic, and now we've got a budget, which is the real building plan, and we're very confident with how the budget looks.
Yeah, and I saw Sid Scott today, and he's just still tickled pink that, number one, they even have this job, and number two, that our budget is so robust. So there's many projects that they go into where they have much lower budget than we have. So, as he said, and I've said before too, if this is not a fabulous building, it's not the money's fault. And we've got a great team on this, I think, too. I mean, we have really productive meetings. The contractors are fabulous. I know they're reaching out to people already in the area to line up parking for, the construction. And Kathy Wiseman, who is the person who runs the Pioneer Center, she can be opinionated about people, and she just thought the person who worked with her, who's Dave, who you've met at the meetings, was just so nice. And it's like, phew. Because that's an important thing to that's starting to align those relationships in the neighborhood with the construction thing. That's like that whole another layer, as you peel back the onion.
Right.
There's lots of stages to this, and you want to carry everybody with you along as you go. So that communication and those relationships are just key along the way. So I think we selected people that are just really good at that, and I feel good about that. And then our project manager is just so on the ball with just having everything lined up, and he's an architect and an engineer. And so, with him and with DA and Brian Shaw, the commissioner, who's also a builder, and Denise Kai from Parks, who is like our maintenance person, who built this building and multiple other buildings. We just have a very good advisory group working with the consultants. And I think it's a really good team.
Does that make your job easier?
Makes my job
As a manager?
a heck of a lot easier.
As a manager?
Yeah, as a manager. Good question. Yeah, because, in talking to architects and DA, I'm sure you've run into this, in public projects, I think there's always the potential for, little hidden agendas along the way that you just kind of stumble into that can cause some real roadblocks. And, we've had to do our work with meetings and stuff like that, but that's laid a really good foundation for the relationships going forward. So I think it's good.
Yeah, I will say this has been the community meeting process has been the most comprehensive I've ever seen. And I can tell you I've built jails in downtown Hillsborough, for example, and we just told them what we were going to do, and we didn't do all this. So this has been involving the community to this level. As you said, laid a really good foundation. And as a result, a lot of the things that we thought were going to be challenges didn't come to pass.
That's good. That's good.
So, well, we're not done yet, but so far so
That's
good.
right, we're not out of the woods yet.
Not out of the woods yet. Wait till we start chopping down trees. Yeah.
Remember, those trees are going to come down anyway.
Most of them.
So
There's like
they're-
one that's not going to come down, but we will try to repurpose that.
But still, being able to say these were going to come down anyway.
That helps a lot.
Helps
It
a
really,
whole lot.
really does. Yeah.
It's still a startling thing, and it will
It
be
is when
it will be newspaper worthy.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah.
And you know that people are going to scream and holler and whatnot, but at the same time, to be able to stand there and say they were going to come down anyway, whether we got the building up or not, those trees were going to come down.
Maybe we need to have a little funeral for them or something. I don't know.
I
Say that might be the way to avoid negative PR is to do something very positive on the day that they
Just kind
actually
of
do that.
face it head on, do you know?
I'll make
Do you have an
a.
idea, Don?
Yes, I do. I'll hit my speaker button.
Good.
All right.
Ever.
Go ahead, Don.
Yeah.
Don.
Well, we're supposed to use this thing.
Kinda, sorta, yeah.
In public relations, there's a thing called inoculation. And this is where you arrange an event prior to the cutting down, prior to the chainsaws buzzing like this, to inform the people about the disease in the trees and how they've ought to do and what the studies have done on this.
Yeah.
And you put that out there so that they actually know the situation before it actually
It wasn't an
happens.
arbitrary decision.
Yeah,
It was-
that wasn't an arbitrary decision. There's the article. It was 2 months ago. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That's really a good one.
Inoculation.
Trees. I like that.
Right.
Yeah, parking plan, all those kinds of things might help. The good thing is the Ermitinger construction has kind of like been going on for a while. They're right in the neighborhood, and people have been coping with it. So this will be bigger and worse, but we're kind of going to finish that one up, and then we can kind of take this one on, and it'll be all right.
When will the trees come down?
I don't know.
Okay. This is the child-focused piece in me. I'm wondering if letting people write, and it sounds a little new agey and hokey as well, but having people write a letter or a goodbye or a wish to the tree, and then
I mean, that's the kind of thing I was
and
thinking
then
of.
have
I think
the
it's
tree,
a great
have
idea.
the tree sort of decorated with those wishes, and when the
Uh-huh.
tree goes, our wishes for the community go, and have it
Ooh,
sort of be a
I like it.
community-focused one. So,
Yeah.
Good
you
idea.
know,
Okay, well, we'll get that going in building committee and get it on the schedule for an event to happen along that line. And I think
Okay,
I think that save us an awful lot of angst.
I think that would be cool to take some pictures of a whole bunch of kids with linking their arms around the tree. I mean, I think that would be awesome. That's all right. That's all right.
Good copy.
The
Copy.
the the technical side of this is that those trees, because they're diseased, have to be taken down and treated properly. And there's, so they have to go to some facility to be burned or something, but we can't just chop up the firewood and give it to the needy.
No, but one of them is the maple.
Yeah.
The maple's coming down, and what we'll have to do is arrange to have that taken off site and milled or something, because if we could use that. And by the way, I think I told you, but I can't remember, there's some wood from the Ermitinger that we're going to get as well, that we're thinking about ways to incorporate. You know, they're like wide, old growth planks.
And the
basically.
Artist Society over here has many, many woodworkers that would gladly turn that stuff into beautiful
Yeah,
things.
exactly. So, I mean, I keep on meaning to call Cheryl
No,
Snow.
we don't want a statue of
It's like every day I say, call Cheryl Snow, and I keep forgetting. Anyway, yeah.
the mayor.
Okay, so let's see. So our next meeting then will be our meeting on Tuesday, the 24th, with the Historic Review Board. And if all goes well, then that's it from the Historic Review side.
What time of day is that?
That's in the evening. I think it's at 6, but it could be at 7. Yeah, here.
7 o'clock.
7? Okay. And,
You need support?
oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. You know, the architects and even this is where the architect from Colorado may actually come out, because he's the historic expert, so I'm hoping he will. And kind of address all the SHPO design concerns and how we're meeting those and addressing those. So for instance, like a 2-story building has a big mass. How do you make the focus the historic building and not the massive 2-story building? So, you know, that's why it's all glass upstairs. Oops. Oh, and by the way, I got interviewed by the Daily Journal of Commerce yesterday about this project, so that'll show up soon.
Nice.
I have a request to speak.
Oh, go for
Yes.
it. I can't see that.
It's
so-
not showing up, Don. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Anyhow, the architect coming from Colorado would be another good opportunity to get him interviewed about the bigger issue. I'm always thinking of the more publicity we can put on this thing, the better. And
Yeah, because he's so experienced with
There you
this
go.
stuff, too.
I think that
Yeah, let me find out about that.
to educate the people on what we know or are about to
Yeah, and
learn,
what we've done
what
towards.
we've done,
yeah.
how we got to there, how
great.
other communities have come together, and you're doing great, and we need that kind of backslapping, and so I think he would be a good source for that.
Okay.
All right, I withdraw my request to speak.
And then we had our Energy Trust meeting, which brings together all like the engineer types. And we had kind of already had one of those, but anyway, we reviewed like HVAC and solar, and there's actually a 1.5% requirement for solar. So we're going to have to do solar even if solar doesn't even make sense, which it doesn't particularly make sense. But you don't have a choice. So, but you'll recall that we're not doing the lead thing, but we're not doing the certification, but we're doing all the stuff.
Yeah.
Which apparently is how most public buildings are going these days, because the certification costs so much.
Right.
And a lot of it has changed so that it's built into standards anyway. So,
I have another request to
yeah,
speak.
yeah.
Well, okay, on the solar thing, if it's not going to do anything as far as running a computer or anything, could it run a piece of illuminated sculpture?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, are we required to have any kind of artwork in this place?
There's no requirement, but we will have artwork in this place.
Wouldn't that be cool to have a solar-powered sculpture of some kind?
Sure. I don't think it's going to need the kind of solar that we have to have, but I mean as much power and stuff. I don't know. What do you think, DA?
They're going to integrate. You can say that it's doing that, but they're going to integrate the solar equipment into the electrical
The left arm
equipment.
of this
you know.
statue was...
Right, so we could say that, yeah.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
can say it, but it's really just going to be integrated.
All right, then.
We could just pretend it's going directly to that thing. So any questions about the building stuff?
Mhm.
It's doing well.
Yes.
It's getting pretty
good. Yeah,
exciting.
it's going along well. That's good to hear.
Yeah, it's getting kind of like reality time. If they break ground in July at some point, late July is kind of when it's planned for. Well, that's like less than 6 months down the road, right?
Yeah.
Ah! How do we prepare staff?
Efficiently and with panache.
Yeah, that's going to be tough for several people.
Well, I just want to emphasize again that we've got a plan that really is going to work. There aren't going to be things coming out of the woodwork that will give us serious economic problems. So we've really reached a milestone yesterday, knowing that the budget works with the building, and we're getting the building square footage that we needed. So
Good. That's excellent.
I think right now nominally it's 14,500 square feet for the new building. So that's really on par with what we wanted. So.
Yeah, we total up to like over 21,000 because the Carnegie is over 5,000. It's like 6 something. Yeah. And then we do have contingency money, of course, in this budget too. So
Right.
because
Yeah.
things will happen, and it's
Yeah,
it's in there. It's got some nice padding still.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Nice job.
Nice job.
I'm really pleased with where we are. So great.
When the contractor's happy, I'm happy.
There you go.
Yep. All right, so next,
Mhm.
library director's report.
Yep, exactly.
Let's see here. So our numbers are looking pretty good, pretty steady,
Stats.
and I feel pretty good about that. Because, you know, for a while they were kind of taking a little dive,
Mhm.
and that didn't make me too happy at all.
Mhm.
So they look pretty good. You know, I would say it's kind of flat, kind of steady. And January was a little bit of a quiet month event-wise, except for mindful meditation with Surja. And we had 60 people show up and a ton of people who couldn't make it that night. So this is, you know, like learning how to, uh-oh, can you go let that person in, whoever it is?
It's not my children.
I
told them I would come
So he came back the other day, and we have decided to do another event. Oh, Doug. Oh, don't you still have your key? Don't you still have your key, Doug? They take that away from you? Thank you, Aaron. So he's going to come back in June and do one for adults, and he's going to do one for kids, which I think will be really interesting, that we hope parents can attend with kids. He says probably younger than 7 is not, they can't sit still for the length of time that this process takes. Yeah, really? But it's pretty amazing, and he is kind of right on the cutting edge of doing or being involved in brain research and stuff with OHSU. He's like one of their speakers up there or something. I don't know. He's involved with that. So
Did he cost money to bring in?
but not much, like $100 or something, 150, whatever, not much. So I'm excited that he's coming back, and we try to time it so that it was like the Monday after school gets out. It's like the 15th or something. So I don't know. It still might be a little bit crazy, but we had to work with his schedule too. So these are going to be on Monday nights, which is really weird, but he's got classes on other nights, and we'll just kind of deal with it. You know, in the future, when we have a community room, that won't be a problem. I'm so looking forward to that. And then, of course, February is very exciting because of our community-wide read activities, and you've got the whole list in front of you. And Lois Levine will be here tomorrow night, and she's just a dynamic speaker. I just came from Broadway Books. I picked up some books this afternoon to sell, and what the owner of Broadway Books said, we just love Lois here. She is just the treasure of Portland. And I mean, she's really well respected and gives a darn good talk. So she'll have some kind of visual presentation, and then she's back next week for the Art and Architecture of Italy, and that, of course, will be a lot of visual presentation. So the idea of visiting Italy without going to Italy, although I know we'd all rather be in Italy. And then
Been
the
there,
two
boy.
events at the end of the month, the Oregon Practice. Actually, I wrote that wrong. It's the original Practice Shakespeare Festival. That's the same night as the Historic Review Board.
Ah,
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll be here. And then the Renaissance Musics and Instruments with
That looks good.
Phil and Gail, who are with the Trail Band. I don't know if you guys know the Trail Band.
do.
Yeah, they're good. So,
Wow,
yeah.
what a night.
So I think that'll be super fun month. And let's see. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you guys about, which I guess I wrote about a little bit in one of my reports, I can't remember, I didn't print it off for myself, was the conference that I attended in Chicago, where my husband broke his hand because he fell in the snow. Surgery tomorrow. I know. Anyway, so it was ALA Midwinter, and I specifically wanted to go to attend the Public Library Association All-Day Institute on the role of public libraries. And the person who led this, her name is Valerie Gross, and she is the head of a countywide system in Howard County, Maryland, where Johns Hopkins is. So I get the feeling that there's a lot of money there, and they've got they're used to a pretty high level of education and stuff, because the people that she has do her programs are like all these scientists and amazing people from Johns Hopkins and other places. She just rattled off like a ton of names. It was really impressive and overwhelming. But her contention is, and I'm going to send you guys my notes from this so that you can like read more how she kind of took us through the process of thinking about this. Her contention is that libraries should use educational vocabulary to describe what they do. So instead of saying story time, which sounds old-fashioned, vague, and all about non-important stuff, use, kids' classes or toddlers' classes. Like, use the word class. Use the word curriculum. A lot of us had mixed feelings about this, Laura, because curriculum has a very specific term and
It's like
use.
database. It's like, sorry.
But what she was trying to say is that it's not always, this is not just spin for spin's sake, but what you really need to think about is how you present yourself to the world and how you present yourself to your own internal self. So are you using language which is really descriptive of what is being accomplished and achieved and going on in the library? And what she's saying is, like, there are many more things that should be called workshops than programs, because program is kind of a nothing word that describes nothing. But workshop is kind of more.
That's very true.
So, she kind of led us along this path of just thinking of different terminology that is more in alignment with, like, other educational institutions. Because what we achieve regularly falls under that broad scope of education. Even if it's not specific, it kind of falls under the broad umbrella. So, like I said, I'll send you guys my notes so you can kind of see what she was thinking. It's a very interesting approach, and I think there's a lot of merit to it, because if we take ourselves more seriously and present ourselves more seriously, then probably we will be taken more seriously. And I'm not sure that that's a problem in this community, but it is a big problem in other communities. Now, the flip side of that is there are some communities that really don't value education. And so that could actually work against you.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you have to kind of know your community that you're in, So, like I said, I think where she is, there's a very high premium placed on being well educated. And, it's very close to D.C.
Yeah.
It's probably filled with all kinds of, federal employees and this and that. And that would make sense. Other places in the country, it might not make so much sense. But anyway, that's her thing. And then the other thing she does was she selected this program called Choose Civility, and she decided that that the library would kind of take this program and organize everybody, get all kinds of partners in it to kind of spread this program throughout their county. And she's got like 1,200 partners or something. I mean, this lady is like a real go-getter. And choosing civility is kind of one of those things that starts very, very young on, not just manners and kindness, but kind of the words we choose to talk to each other, so that by the time we are, can have a conversation even, we can disagree politely, civilly. It's all about civil discourse in the long run. So, that's stuff I've brought up here before, because I think the library can be a leader in kind of helping that along. But what she decided was that the library, should be the leader, take it by the horns, and then create all this programming and collaboration around it. And it's worked really well for her. So again, that's the right environment for it there. But it was very interesting to kind of see her take on that. And then one of the other really powerful sessions that I went to was about expecting more. So really being like so integrated into your community that, as one person said, you're not across the table from your neighbors, you're next to them. And you're just really enmeshed in the community a lot more. So they had a lot of great ideas too about that. So I'll send you guys all those notes so you can see where the money's going when I go to things like this.
That'd be great.
Yeah, no, I was just rereading them and redoing them today, and I was like, these really were really good sessions. I mean, they're very, very inspiring. And then you get back and you're like, it takes you 2 weeks to even look at your notes again, and you know how it goes. So I would love to get your take on that kind of stuff after you read this, maybe next month, or send me an email or whatever. So that happened, and then one of the other things we're doing at the library is we have a group called the PICs, and they're the people in charge, person in charge. So like every day, all day long, there's somebody that, if there's a problem, that's who everybody knows they can go to. And so especially in the evenings and on weekends, it's really nice. And what we do is we have monthly meetings to talk about all kinds of stuff. And we decided to start reviewing our behavior policy, which I sent to you. And one of the reasons that I want to start looking at some of our policies now before we have a new building, so that we're thinking in terms of like a more robust population of people visiting, more visitors, more problems, more this, more that. How are we going to respond to it? Let's have thought some of this stuff through so it's not all just this gigantic surprise, Another thing I mentioned, I think, to you guys was we need a meeting room policy. So we can start now looking at what other libraries do and then talking about what would be best for this community, right? So the thing that I think in the past you guys already approved this policy like years ago. When I first got on board, we didn't have a behavior policy, or it was like really ancient. We had one, but it was really, really old. And so this is kind of modeled after Eugene, which is kind of modeled after Multnomah County. And it's very specific and it covers everything. But as you can imagine in a library, some things are enforced more than others. So our particular thing happens to be sleeping. It's not really enforced because it's on this list, but you kind of think about what you're trying to do. And it's like, well, is there a disturbance? Is that sleeping person creating a disturbance? Or are they making the environment unsafe? Are they making the environment uncomfortable? Now, so those are a couple different questions, but they're all the questions that have to go through our mind, So most sleeping people just kind of happens all the time, right? And you're like, why should I go up to that person and go, Sir, you need to wake up, or however I do it. But then other sleeping people are easy to wake up because they're snoring. But then other sleeping people, namely people who look like they might be homeless, make people uncomfortable when they're sleeping. They're not doing anything different than some person that snoozed off, but they are perceived in a different way. So I really want to have these conversations so that we can just kind of deal head on with, well, how do we have to be consistent. We have a public building, we address everybody through a behavior-based thing. And if the homeless person is just doing the same thing that another person is doing, why are we bothering the homeless person? Because they look homeless, So these are the kind of conversations that we're having because, when we have a brand new building that looks really nice, this will also attract more homeless people. But it will also make people who are not homeless even more upset that they're there. So I really kind of need you guys, it doesn't have to be tonight, but to be thinking about the non-librarian point of view on this, because we wrangle with this all the time, and there's a lot of different opinions in the library about how, what people can tolerate. I mean, everybody's got their level of what makes them comfortable on staff too, right? So, I'm reaching out to our Father's Heart person, and the police are willing to come talk to us anytime, and we can get training, But we still have to kind of think through what's the best response, overall. So I just kind of wanted you to be in on what we think about when we talk about some of this stuff.
I had read from the Library Association a couple of articles on doing homeless that the libraries actually do homeless outreach and have social workers that come on a regular basis and even an on-staff nurse, and a lot of these are in urban areas.
Oh yeah,
Where
like
the
Los
homeless is-
Angeles and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
where
You see it.
Yeah.
but it's all community, and it, for me, I think when you bring it out into the open, it's not quite as frightening.
Yeah, I think so too.
The articles were really good, and I may copy everybody here with some of it.
That would be great.
Because
Yeah.
the way they approached it and the way they were doing literacy and health checkups and seeing professional people engage with homeless people then puts them in a different perspective than them just sitting in a chair sleeping. So.
Yeah.
There was just a piece on one of the larger libraries in the nation. Could have been on PBS. I'm not
It was
sure.
on OPB. It was. I didn't
Yeah.
see it. Was San Francisco?
Yeah, San Francisco, and where they have counselors that come through, which were former homeless persons
Yeah,
themselves.
which is brilliant.
Brilliant, yes, because they can speak the same language
Yeah.
and be empathized much better. And their role is they try to find them housing because that's why they're sleeping there. They can't sleep anywhere else. But
Yeah. There was just
Yeah.
an article about
Yeah.
our increase in Oregon City.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that. And seriously, we don't have a problem. I don't want you to think that we have a problem because we don't. Honestly, I think that non-homeless people create more problems than the homeless people do. They don't want to get kicked out. They're pretty well behaved.
yes,
stay warm.
Sure,
They want to stay warm. Yeah.
That's right.
Every so often, my staff will think, oh, that person looks scary or something. Well, part of that, is, this is complex. The whole situation is complex. I don't know what that person's upbringing is. Everybody's perception is very individual. I just know that we're going to treat everybody like they belong there to start with. And I was even thinking putting up a sign that said something like, in here, we're all community or something like that. Because that's, I think, how we should all feel, at least to start with. So.
I think there's also the other layer that in a culture that has increasingly less public space and so much more space is privately owned, that really the library is one of the few places and parks where you can actually go and have the right to be there. And I think that underpins that sense of communities, that you can't go to a mall and do that.
No.
And it even puts people more on the fringe when there's not even a place to go to use the bathroom where you
Right. Yeah, it's one of the very few places. But then the other thing that we do know is a lot of people are forced into homelessness because of mental illness. And so knowing that does make sometimes other people who are not in that situation more wary, because if you don't know what to expect, then you're a little bit more frightened of it. If we were smart, we would realize that looking normal has got nothing to do with that. But, somebody looking a little bit, like they're off the streets does put a lot of people on guard. And, that's just how it is. So these are all issues that, I want to talk about as much as possible, because I think you're right. Bringing it out into the open is like the best thing to do.
Do we have to approve this at a particular?
No, it's nothing.
Okay. Thanks for
it's-
bringing it to our attention.
Yeah.
I have one last question on that. Since Carnegie's in the park, and we'll still have a park surrounding our new library, how is this going to mesh with park policies?
Well, park policies are like, no drinking,
Yeah.
or any of that behavior. It meshes fine with it, meshes
Okay.
well with it. Yeah.
So it should be integrated well enough that it's
Yeah,
seamless
and if there's
inside
a
and out.
problem outside the library, we don't go looking for problems outside the library, but if we notice a problem outside the library, we call 911, just like if it's inside the building. So in fact, that actually has been where most of the things that have happened that we've called about.
If we had comments or maybe possible additions to this, when do we do that?
Anytime. You can email me, you can say it now, whatever.
I'll say it now.
Okay.
Vaping, the electronic use of nicotine project. It's not even tobacco, but that's not in here. And I'm sure there's going to be somebody going to try to do a vape in there,
Yeah, anything that looks like a
And
cigarette
the other
will
thing
be
that's
out.
really disturbing me is that it's not against the law to take pictures underneath women's dresses
That's
or
really
down their
disturbing,
blouses.
isn't it? Yeah.
But I think we could put it in here.
We could put it in here, because if we agree on it and approve it.
Inappropriate use of.
Of photographs
Of
for
photographs.
whatever, but those are two ideas.
Thanks.
Good one's done.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it would go right under item 12.
Under 19, the personal electronic equipment.
Yeah, that would be a good one for that. Good. Yeah, anything you think of. This format is a little huge to get through. But, if you don't spell things out, it's easier to enforce if you could just point right at it. And it also gives staff a level of comfort in having specifics.
Is it something that's posted in the library?
Yeah, it's in there somewhere. We try to hand these out, don't we? With new cards, yeah.
Okay.
It would be in our best interests, as we get the new building put into place, to actually have something like this mounted, like near the circulation desk or something like that. Also, on number 15, the pets and animals guidelines, do you have a copy of those two documents? Because they're very specific about what is and is not a disability animal.
Yeah,
Maybe Pekingese.
I know them pretty well.
Well, the idea.
Everybody tries to claim that their
The
animal
difference
is
between a service dog and a assistance dog are very, very different. One is protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. The other is not.
the service animal that's protected, right? So I should change that word.
Yeah, well, a service animal is very specifically federally recognized as a dog. Now in
Not like
Oregon,
can't we do ponies here?
Monkeys?
Oregon, no. Stop that. Oregon has a thing about guide horses.
Yeah.
And that's one of those weird exceptions.
Right.
But on a federal level, it's specifically dogs, and they're specifically trained for specific purposes.
Right.
And you can't ask them, is that an assistance animal? You have to ask them, well, you can ask them if it's an assistance animal, but if you ask them that, you have to ask them what it's specifically trained for, not what the disability is.
Well, yeah.
But you ask them what they're trained for.
Right.
And if it's a comfort animal, that's not. an
No, I
assistance
know,
animal.
I know, yeah. It goes with me everywhere. It doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like-
You'd be surprised at the people who try to bring dogs into the
I worked
library.
at Freddy's, I know about this.
But then the other thing is, then they don't bring them in and they leave them like chained up outside, which is also not acceptable.
Which is the
you
next thing I
know?
want to talk about.
Yeah.
You'll have only here like the front entrance, so they could chain them up at other places?
Well, it's really, really difficult to deal with an animal that's outside
Yeah,
because you don't know who it belongs to,
right.
right? And if the dog is a problem, you have to be prepared to call animal nuisance, whatever, right?
Control.
Control, yeah. And then wait for them to come. And in the meantime, that person has probably like come and fetched their dog. I mean, we were like standing at the checkout desk, watching this dog bark, right tied to like the poetry post area, the bench at the poetry post. And the guy had to have heard us talking about it because he was like buried in the DVDs. And he stood up and then went right back to his business. People just don't care. It's like, oh, I'll be done in 2 minutes. I don't care if my dog's disturbing you.
That's right.
And so you kind of almost have to catch him in the act. I didn't notice it was him until like later when I had gone off to do something else, and then, yeah, it's very annoying. And I feel so bad for the animal. But, so yeah, that's not okay, but
Not the animal's fault.
it's, your
Is
hands are
that
kind of.
library jurisdiction, or is that go into park?
Oh, I don't hesitate to, if I could do something about it, I wouldn't hesitate to, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, then people are like, well, I live right down the street, and you won't let me bring my dog in. You know, what I mean, can you hear this conversation happening?
Oh, yes.
Why
I
did
can
you
hear
not leave it down the street?
Yeah,
Because it's too hot today, I want to,
yeah. So, yeah.
Pekingese will die if it stays outside.
Anyway, oh, and the other thing is, we have a listserv that it's great because people are always talking about interesting things only to us about policy, and one's about odor, for instance. And I noticed that we have a thing in here about bad odor, but we don't really have a thing in here about odors that some people might consider good odors, but they overdo it. Like, too much perfume yeah.
Or cologne.
So I'm going to lift some language that I got from one of those other things.
Yeah.
And it turns out, since I've done a lot of choir work, that choir members are not allowed to wear that amount of
Yeah.
stuff because people are
Allergic.
inhaling that, and they get
Yeah.
allergic to this stuff.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, it's really bad. Those fumes
Yeah.
that come off of that are really bad.
Yeah.
Working in food service and clean room environments, they've got very, very strict
Yeah.
policies regarding those kind of things.
Well, we have staff who are very sensitive to that kind of thing. And so, we've been thinking about it for a long time. And you can't control who comes in, but once you notice it's a problem, you can control if they stay. So, anyway. So that's all that this was, is that this is going to be kind of an ongoing process. At some point in time, we can revise it for big things and for little things while we're at it. So, but kind of with that future in mind.
yeah.
Okay? So that's all I got.
Okay,
Quite a bit.
Anything else?
good.
As
We got
always.
down to communications. Eileen?
Oh, yeah. Linda was not able to make it here from the foundation for tonight, so I'm just going to update you the status. There was a treasury report on the balance for the foundation itself, the operations of the foundation, and it was 8,100 and change. They had a lot of income from, was it PAC that gave them some money, I think?
Yeah, when the
Yeah,
pact dissolved.
Yeah,
it-
just donated, and then their card sales. The other item of business was we went over some naming opportunities, starting on that path as to different opportunities for donors to look at parts of the library to donate to and have a naming opportunity. And Karen's investigating a policy, a donor policy with the correct language that could be presented for donors to understand, how this could be done, because the city doesn't really have anything for public a gift policy or donor recognition policy. So she was looking at other places. So she's going to work with the city manager and with Mo to try and come up with something that would be appropriate so she can start the fundraising. Then we talked quite a bit about donor recognition, different areas within the library. It was kind of a chop shop of the library of where could names go and be recognized, and so there was a lot of discussion about that, from stairs to hallways to rooms to collections. I mean, it got pretty creative. So that's something that's being worked on, and I think that was pretty much most of what went on, and it sounds like with the next meeting there'll be a lot of information to start moving forward. And there's still some issues on what I think would be termed generic public donations, you know, the people under $25, and where that opportunity would be available based on the architect input, because obviously things like bricks are not going to work, but where would there perhaps be other opportunities where somebody who doesn't have the $60,000 to,
That would be most of us.
you know, to
Perhaps
pay
even
for the
all of us,
stairwell
yeah.
or the, you know, a handicap lift or something, but where the general public perhaps could donate. So she was going to be talking with Mo and the architect and trying to find that a little bit more. So it's kind of exciting. They're in this building stage. So that is the foundation update.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, so Karen came to, before our building committee meeting yesterday, she came early and met with the architects. So we started that conversation, just
Okay.
so they've kind of got that in mind,
Right.
as far as, you know, the signage will be used for, you know, the same kind of lettering and that kind of stuff, you know, so it's consistent throughout the building. And, hey, Charlie. I'm speaking to the microphone. And then tomorrow we're meeting with David Frazier. She's got a draft
Oh,
naming policy because, as Eileen said, we don't have one in the city because we haven't really had this kind of opportunity before. So we just need to make sure we're aligned with the city and what we do. Whatever it is, they need to be on board with how we proceed. So we're starting there. So that's tomorrow.
Well, you know, one of the things, I don't know if there's going to be something outside, a decoration or something. You could sell engraved stepping stones with the people's names on them.
Yeah, you know, for some reason Karen really hates that idea because apparently it's hard to manage. I don't know. She says there's got to be something else that's easier.
Manage before or manage after?
Right.
I don't know, but she's done it before.
Okay.
Estacada has that leading up. And some of the bricks get worn more than other bricks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the
The
ongoingness
foundation
of
at
it.
Lynn Benton Community College, when I was there, sold those,
Uh-huh.
and they had quite an area out at one of the entrances of the college where those were. And raised a lot of money.
Mhm.
And I think we'll hear that it's hard to clean,
Probably.
you know,
Yeah.
keep
More
them
than likely.
clean, yeah.
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 yeah. Did I understand that issues of benches outside within the concrete pathway, you know, out in the park area?
The issue of the benches?
No, is it something that if people wanted to donate benches to go in, is that something? that's
Typically, benches are a great thing to have a naming opportunity
Right,
for.
right.
I don't think they just get to donate whatever kind of bench they want.
No, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's already something, they would underwrite something that's already architecturally approved. I mean,
Yeah,
is
and
that-
we'd work with Parks on that.
Okay.
So,
okay.
like anything that's out there, Parks is going to end up being kind of involved to make sure
Okay.
that we get it all. Like, we'll probably end up going back to, we for sure will end up going back to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee to talk about the playground equipment and everything. And benches would be kind of part of that conversation. But yeah, but I think it's a great naming opportunity. So, but we need to work with Parks on what gets named outside, but there's absolutely no reason not to, and I'm sure they'll be fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess one of the things that's coming up is, right now it's an alternate because the community hasn't really bought into it completely, but we're talking about a seating wall around the spray park. And that may represent some pretty good naming opportunities as well.
Yeah, and that might come up in the Historic Review Board, because apparently that's, the wall that's there is kind of a last vestige of the original spray park or some such thing, and so,
We still have to work those details out.
yeah, we still have to work those details out. But yes, that might be a good opportunity.
Since there's so much glass, is there a possibility of doing sort of an opaque etching section of it that would be like in a tree or some type of artistic design? Oh, is that what you guys said already?
No, that's what I was just writing
Oh,
down.
and then having the names within the window,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
because it's going to be such a focal point of the building. You
Combine,
can clean it
yeah,
with Windex.
artistic tree.
Yeah, but it's made out of names.
Cleaning's an issue.
I think I know what you're talking about, because I've seen that with like quotes before though, right?
Yeah.
It's in libraries, and you could do it with donor names instead.
And major
Right.
donors, I've seen it at like theaters, do you know, or just sort of.
Yeah, like coal is the tree trunk. Not. But yeah, I get it. Get your idea. That's a good idea. And so along those lines, I'm sorry, but one more thing.
Okay.
You know, we haven't gotten to like specific kind of thematic ideas in the library. So for instance, like a lot of the newer libraries, they have things that kind of look like trees in them, you know, in Oregon, but they have them all over the country because there's trees all over the country, right? And you'll find that a lot in children's areas specifically, these really like playful touches. And we haven't, is that me? Oh my God, sorry. We haven't really gotten that far yet, but if you have any thoughts along those lines. Sorry, go ahead. That would be great. I mean, the architects are thinking of things too, because I just talked to Sid, like I said, and he's like, yeah, we've been brainstorming, da, da. But, you know, that's where like a lot of the identity of the community can kind of come out, you know, as well. So,
The falls and the river. The
Falls and the river,
That's
the
what you're gonna hear from
falls
me
and the
every
river.
single time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's might exactly be it.
Yeah.
Lamprey eels.
No.
Just saying.
They're fascinating.
Last time I checked, this
Thanks,
was a
Don.
fear factor.
Is there any other communications?
That would wake up the sleepers.
No, she answered it. Oh, God. Yeah, I'll call you back. Sorry, I thought I didn't get that call. Okay. That's fine.
None? Okay. Future agenda items? Anybody have anything for the good of the future agenda? Okay. Just, Don, anything?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. There's no further business. We adjourn this meeting at 6:03.